my 6th grade graduation. We all had to say what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I was like, I'm going to be a Muay Thai fighter. I was not a natural at all because I had thrown away a good 7 years of my life not being healthy. 5, 6 years of just drinking, drugs, partying, all that stuff. But I wanted it, and I'm a hard worker. That's one thing I attribute to my Mennonite upbringing. That definitely prevails in myself and all my siblings. I'm not a religious person anymore. That ended a long time ago, but like I literally had an out-of-body experience one night. I just floated out of my body. At least it seemed like maybe it was a dream, maybe it wasn't, but looking down at myself, be like, you can't keep doing this. There's a lot of things that I used to think I wanted to do, which weren't good for me. It would end up leading to like ugly periods of life. I actually called those years my lost years. Lost years were between about 14 and 20, 21. Actually, just before I found Muay Thai. Muay Thai is actually what pulled me out.
Welcome to the Calgary Sessions. This is episode number 125. I'm your host, Jeff Humphreys. Before I get into it today, I'm asking people, if you like this show or previous shows, please subscribe to this and throw up some stars. 5 would be great. 4 is not ideal. So 5-star review would be awesome. Today's guest, this is an introduction through our friend Mitch Jacobson. I asked him, like, you know anybody cool that'd be great on the show? And right away, he put this guy's name up. So please name and who you are.
My name's Johan Hamm. I owner and operator of Exceed Muay Thai, Ease Yoga, and U-Farm Ecosystems. I actually have a third one that most people don't really know about. I don't talk about that one much. It's a little under the radar at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's always cool, like we just talked about off camera, just, you know, when I ask previous guests to kind of recommend people in their world, it's always interesting to see what names pop up. So the way this usually works is Mitch is like, yeah, have Johan on. And I was like, okay. So I Google it and I'm like, oh, okay, this will be cool. So I'm looking forward to hearing this story face to face for the first time. I barely know anything about you, so it'll be a very educational story for me to hear. So take this one back. Take it as far back as you want to go. So,
you know,
like some people go back to, you know, it's kind of what inspired you back in the day, you know, who inspired you, what you're up to, where you live. So just kind of like take it back as far as you want to go, and we'll kind of weave our way to where you are today.
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Why do you say that?
Well, I'm what you would call somebody that keeps themselves. I'm a very private person about my non-professional life. I'm pretty private about it, but yeah, I can do my best to take you back.
Yeah, let's go.
It's probably all relevant. Like, I'm assuming that's probably why you want the relevance of where I am, etc.
What's interesting is some past guests, like when they start reflecting back on kind of where they came from and just, you know, what they were up to over all these years, they tend to say at the end of the chat, they're like, I haven't thought about all these things in so long.
Mm-hmm.
And once they start talking, sometimes they're connecting these dots live in the moment that they're like, I've never thought about this. So it's like this interesting experiment of different experiences at different ages, how either they prepared you for what you're doing today or educated you on like different paths to take. But it's like this kind of very reflective approach to kind of just winding it back.
Well, knowing what I know about like how the mind works, pretty much everything from the start is going to affect who you are today. So yeah, I might as well just go all the way back.
I'd love to hear it, man.
Yeah. So I was actually born into a family of 10 kids. So there's a lot of us. Born in Mexico, but European heritage. Ever hear of, I'm assuming you've heard of Mennonites before?
Yep.
So I'm actually born as a Mennonite. Moved to Canada when we were 3, or I was 3, sorry. Yeah, and which was obviously probably, you know, very difficult and formative. You know, like my parents weren't English speaking, they weren't educated, so they didn't come from a strong background to have a leg up. So things were fairly difficult from the start, which to me, it was normal. I didn't know any better. That's all normal to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, growing up, moving a fair bit actually through Canada also. I don't even remember where we lived first, to be honest. Might have been Manitoba, might have been Alberta. I kind of forgot.
Yeah.
But we did move back and forth between those two a number of times. Ontario too, actually, if I remember right. I can remember Ontario at least once. Yeah, so a lot of that, like, constant change, a decent amount of instability, like maybe a little bit of an unhealthy amount of instability.
Yeah.
Probably stemming from, my father made a number of questionable decisions, let's say. Well, he didn't have a solid upbringing either, so I don't really blame him, but like he wasn't, how would I put it? It's still a little challenging to talk about every now and then, to be honest. Like he was he had a lot of impact, obviously, on my life, like anybody else's dad, but in a lot of negative ways, which turned into positive things in the long run. But it all depends on how you deal with things, right? Like,
for sure.
Just like in anything else.
Are you 10 siblings? How do you fall in the order?
I have 2 younger sisters.
Okay, so you're one of the...
So I have 4 brothers, 5 sisters. I'm the youngest brother. So I got the short end of that stick. But yeah, I loved growing up in a big family. That was awesome.
I can't imagine. Like
very active, really active. Like we can go play baseball, soccer. Yeah, we got full teams. Baseball, obviously you got one hitter and everybody else is in the field, but you can actually play a baseball game at any time. You can play soccer at any time. So very active. And aside from like playing sports, we were always extremely active. My family was sort of against like television and stuff like this. So, which was good in hindsight. At the time, I was like, this sucks, but
no cartoons.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you're put in situations where you have to rely on your creativity a lot in order to be entertained or entertain yourself. And you lean on your siblings pretty hard for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you, when you guys were bouncing around, was there a reason you kept on? Was it like part of the Mennonite community that you were bouncing around?
No. It's just like I was saying, my dad's life wasn't overly stable. Like,
he's on the move.
Huh?
He's on the move.
Yeah, well, he had some problems that he didn't address, and that would lead to instability in jobs. And sometimes it was to move up, like, for good opportunities.
Yep.
Actually, when we moved to Alberta the first time, which is when, after leaving Alberta that time, is when I had decided I will come back one day. But we lived in Alberta at one point for a 7-year period.
Oh, wow.
And I loved Alberta, like, a lot. So yeah, when we did leave, which was again under not the best circumstances, I had, and a number of my brothers had already decided we were all going to come back when we could. And when I turned 20, I did. Like after 2 of my brothers had already come.
Yep.
Then one of them actually asked me 2 years in a row. He's like, "You gonna come? You gonna help me start this trades?" I was a tradesman for a long time. "You gonna help me start this trades business?" And I was like, first year I was like, "Nah, I'm good here." And the next year I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll come."
It's time.
Yeah.
When you're growing up with that size of family, is it just this balance between, like, how does the balance work? Sorry, between like school, interest, family time. Like, how does this? What does it look like in the early days?
Oh man.
Like,
Wow.
I just have this. When you said, you can field your own team almost for every sport, like that I just feel like, end of the school day, it's like, just go occupy space and play.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much all the time. Yeah.
Was there any, was there a focus back then? Like, was there anything that was life pretty just kind of straightforward? School, home?
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. Like I actually excelled in school. I was actually quite smart. Actually, when I first started school, I didn't even speak English. So I actually had to learn English pretty quick. Like, there's a lot of traditional things that my family did. Like, I didn't start school until I turned 5, which was May. So I started school in May. And then obviously you're not going to go to the next grade after a month and a half of schooling. So I ended up having to redo first grade. I skipped kindergarten, didn't do that. But then, by the next year, I was already good at English. And then, the teacher put me in leadership positions all the time, which was great because, she seemed to think I was a natural leader, like give the kids a tour of the school.
I know.
I would actually help students a lot. I would always try to learn the lesson of the day before it was time to actually do the work so that I could either goof off with my friends or help whoever's stuck or whatever. Yeah.
Where do you think that came from?
I have no idea.
Is it like when you come to a foreign country and you don't speak the language, it's like, is it just I don't know, like why how do you figure out a new language and how do you figure out how much energy to give it to figure it out? Like, is it just sink or swim? Like you just have to get it, you have to dig into it?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
It's just like we were talking earlier about learning how to swim, just thrown in it.
Yeah.
And then you just when you're a kid, you're a sponge.
Yeah.
You just pick things up nice and fast.
Yeah, for sure.
As far as the helping people and, learning quick, yeah. Sink or swim, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So kind of coming through like elementary, junior high, is there anything happening? Like, is it sports and school and?
Yeah, well, again, like that was the difficult part. For me, I was actually very athletic. I did excel in sports quite a bit, and I would have schools asking me to be on their team. But unfortunately, my parents would say no. Say they wouldn't want this outside influence on my life.
Right.
So they'd always say no, which was tough. They'd always give me like some sort of weird reason, like it was financial. But then the school would come back and be like, no, we'll take care of everything. We'll give him rides. We'll, pay for everything. He doesn't have to do anything. But still, it was always a no. So it was a bit of a tough situation like that.
Was there, could you say anything? Were you in a spot where you could actually like ask your parents why?
Oh, no.
No, there's just like, it was a one-way conversation.
This is how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Like, how do you handle that? Like, how do you kind of, when you have some athleticism and you kind of can't really push forward, what do you do? Creativity,
right? Like I didn't necessarily want to play things just to show people what I could do or to win anything. I just wanted to play. I liked sports. I liked, outwitting people in sports, outmaneuvering people. It was just good fun. Yeah. We would, as kids, we had this massive tree actually in our yard. It was huge. We would actually play tree tag. It was actually great.
Amazing.
Yeah, like really good for athleticism. And yeah, that was actually one of my favorite games, actually, tree tag. I loved that tree.
That tree must have been massive.
It was.
Like I have this like, as you hear these stories, you kind of like instantly frame a picture and like.
Yeah. In hindsight, it likely wasn't as big as it is in my head, but it felt big enough to actually, we would have like 4 people up in there at a time, literally playing tag. And you hit the ground, you're it. So if you fall, you're it. Yeah.
Now, I don't think that would happen in today's world.
No, likely not. No.
High school?
Yeah, high school.
Where were you at this kind of age?
It was actually in grade school that I was in southern Alberta, actually. Where was that? Picture Butte? No. Yeah, Picture Butte, I think. Yeah. I think is where I had just started junior high. Unfortunately, I was getting in a lot of trouble, and I had so much detention built up already that it was actually like my parents were leaving. We're going to Manitoba. I was like, oh, clean slate.
Go to zero. Was it just you were just acting out? Like you were just being...
Yeah, I don't know. I probably had some not great influence of friends and just like constantly ditching school. I wasn't a bad kid,
Yeah.
It's not like I would do horrible things to people or anything like that. It was just like I wouldn't do what I was supposed to either. You know, constantly skipping classes, even though my grades were really good. Like my grades were actually always really good, but I wouldn't necessarily be doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing all the time. I kind of just did what I wanted. Like, you know, because my home life was fairly regimented and strict, school felt easy.
Right.
It was like, there's nothing you can do to me that I can fear. Like, even if you complain to my parents about this, there's nothing they're going to do about it. So I'm more free here than I am anywhere. Yeah.
It's a very different dynamic.
Yeah. It was very interesting in retrospect. But that was just life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
High school, you're moving to Manitoba?
Yeah. And by then,
when you're bounced around, like starting fresh, you know, like you're walking in these schools, is like, well, here we go again. Like, is it just?
No, I had a fairly easy time making friends, and like I was actually always very strong on my own. Also, like growing up with 9 siblings, like it was easy for me to relate to many different characters. But I would actually also spend a significant amount of time alone. Like I wasn't always necessarily interested in being around people. Like I was always entertained and amused by the world around me, whether I was participating in it or not. So no, I don't remember switching schools or, you know, starting high school. Actually, starting high school was a little scary, but only because things that my brothers would put in my head about what happens there. I was like, holy shit, that sounds terrifying. And it turns out it wasn't at all like that. So it's like, okay, thanks, guys.
Just brothers.
Yeah, exactly. Throw you in with the fish, and they're like, "You're gonna help me, right?" Like, no, you're on your own. Oh, thanks.
Where we go. What's got your interest in high school?
High school. I was still actually very athletic. At that point, I had more or less given up on the idea of doing sports.
Yeah, just because it wasn't allowed.
Just because it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Actually, I had one more time. What was it? They wanted me to be on their soccer team. Like, I joined a baseball team, actually. That's right. I was allowed to do that for some reason. I don't know why. And I did good. I was super fast. Like, so I would be pinch runner and center field because I was still, and then very fast. That was probably my best attribute. But they had asked me to play soccer. And again, it was the same thing. For some reason, that was a no. So I was like, okay, whatever. I give up.
Yeah.
So I would just do whatever sports I could, you know, after school on my own with my friends that didn't require any organization.
Yep.
So basketball. I think we still played a lot of baseball. So it was you know, not everybody was staring at their phones back then or tablets. So everybody was always outside. It was actually a small town. Everyone's always outside doing things. So we'd play football, soccer, baseball, basketball. It's just always playing something. Yeah.
It's such a simple time, hey?
Yeah.
Like just like for my family's rules, it was like not come home when it's dark, but you know what time dinner is. So just make sure you're home for dinner.
Right.
That was it. Like jump on your bikes and away you go. And
yeah. And being in a small town and being more free to just go wherever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And same thing, like dinner time's this time. Once the sun goes down, you come home roughly, which was, that was good.
Yeah.
That was great. The whole town was my playground. It was good.
Yeah. That's a cool upbringing.
Yeah.
Do you, coming out of high school, did you have a plan were you interested in anything? Did you have a plan of what post high school life looked like for you?
No, because like, again, finances were challenging. There was no thought of post-secondary for me. Like anything I would have wanted to do, like potentially like, let's say architecture.
Yep.
Like things that actually interested me, like being an architect, being a lawyer, or anything like that. The amount of schooling and the costs were just out of the question. So it's just like, okay, well, I don't even know. Get a job, pretty much, probably local, not great. Try to climb whatever ladder there is to climb and then see what happens. So it was very planless. Yeah.
Did the lawyer, architect, were those like ideas just kind of lurking in your head, you know, just like?
Yeah. architect, and I always I had an eye for how things were built.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed building things. I would make a lot of stuff because, again, we didn't have a lot, so I'd have to make a lot.
Yep.
Like, I think when I was like 9 years old, I built a 3-story tree house with like a rope hanging over it, over a trampoline.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In law, I've always been, because of, I guess, a decent amount of, sometimes life felt like unjust.
Yep.
I was like, justice needs to be
Mm-hmm.
served somewhere, so law would be cool. But I always, I felt I was good at spotting lies, I guess, like seeing what people are hiding and what they're actually saying a lot of the time, instead of what they're saying, if that makes sense.
Just a different way to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had to, like again, my dad was a difficult person.
Yep.
So like I had to get really good at reading people quick in order to get by, let's say. Yeah.
Just so you know kind of where you stand, read the room.
Yeah, exactly. Like really fast all the time.
Yeah.
Like every day. Yeah. What can I say today? What can I not say today? What can I do today? What can I not do today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just based on what you're seeing, what you're hearing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just the temperature.
What's the time? 6:30. Yesterday was 5:30. So, that says something right there.
For sure.
Yeah.
So when you do you get a job? Is that kind of where you end up?
You know what? I actually ended up moving out when I was 16. So I had to get a job. Actually, no, I already had a job. I had a job when I was 16. So I kind of had, like, this all sounds like, oh, poor me, but it really isn't. Like, in the end, I'm actually really happy for how everything worked out. Like, the amount of things I got to learn from it in the end, not at the moment. At the moment, and like for periods, it was just like, it set things in motion for not great things, but
you could have easily ended up in a way different story.
Yeah, 100%. And I did for a good period of time. I was in a completely different trajectory, but I caught myself like that. That was the fortunate part. But yeah, when I was 16, I had a job at a carpentry factory, night shift, and I would still go to school during the day.
No way.
Yeah.
Just because you needed your own, like, you kind of stand by yourself. Is that why you got a job so young? Like a night shift job at 16 is like,
yeah,
it's a job.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you know you needed a job just to kind of like have some of your own freedom? Like you could kind of dictate your future?
No, I had to get a job. Like that was part of the criteria in that family. But it also afforded me the ability to just move out when I was 16. I was like, okay, I've had enough of this, so I'm just going to go do my own thing now, basically. So, yeah, that's how that ended up working out.
Young at 16 to be.
Yeah.
And then your siblings kind of paved the path for you?
I 2 older brothers did something sort of similar.
Yep.
Yeah. No, they waited till they were 17 or 18 or something like that. Similar though, like they left before their time. Yeah, let's say.
Yeah. When you kind of are out at 16 to be out on your own, that's a daunting spot.
Oh, like, not really. Like,
I guess
it depends what you're used to. It's
fair.
always subjective, or right. Yep. So like for me, it's like, this is awesome. I'm free. Like, I'm free to do whatever I want, which isn't necessarily a good thing, because there's a lot of things that I used to think I wanted to do, which weren't good for me either. And I would do them. Yeah. And it would end up leading to, like I said, ugly periods of life. I actually called those years my lost years, actually.
What were those years?
The lost years were between about 14 and 20, 21. Actually, just before I found Muay Thai.
No way.
Muay Thai is actually what pulled me out.
And just like, making bad decisions, just around the wrong people, just
Bad decisions on top of bad decisions. Yeah.
just compounding.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Like just not having the right life lessons growing up, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, it just kind of sets you up for failure. Unless like you're able to at some point really look at things or notice what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it was exactly that. Like all of a sudden I was like, holy shit, I'm just like him. I've ended up exactly like him.
Is that the moment where things change? Like when there's that kind of...
Yeah, like I had we'll call it a come to Jesus moment. Like I'm not a religious person anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That ended a long time ago, but like it was a literal, well, I guess at the moment it was a literal come to Jesus moment because it was like, I literally had an out of body experience one night. I just floated out of my body. At least it seemed like maybe it was a dream, maybe it wasn't. But looking down at myself, me like, you can't keep doing this. I was like, oh shit. And then I went back, and the next morning I woke up. I was like, holy crap, that was intense. And I somehow managed to keep a testament. I don't know if you know what that is. So it's like a Bible.
Okay.
I had it in my end table, and I started reading it. I read it a couple times, and then I found an original Bible, read that. And like, though I pulled a lot of useful information out of it, it didn't convert me to any religion or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I was like, I can definitely see the value in here, and I can see how it could help guide a person to a better quality of life, you know?
Yeah.
And at about that same time, actually, the whole Muay Thai thing, to be fair, when I was about 6 or 7, just like everybody else, I watched Kickboxer, watched a lot of Van Damme. Can't remember who else back then. Obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he wasn't the martial artist. He was just tough.
Very. Chuck Norris?
Chuck Norris, yeah.
Yeah, Van Damme, yeah.
Not as much Chuck Norris, actually.
Van Damme's a classic.
Yeah, Van Damme, 100%. He went to Thailand, right? And then he did that whole thing. I was like, and I was like, yeah, me too. I'm going to do that. In fact, actually, in my 6th grade graduation, we all had to say what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I was like, I'm going to be a Muay Thai fighter.
It goes back to that.
Yeah.
No way.
And my teacher at the time, he's like, when he was announcing this at the, like, well, where was it? There's some sort of ceremony. He's like, well, if he doesn't make it as a Muay Thai fighter, he'll always be a locksmith, or locksmith has a backup because like one day the gym, or not the gym door, the front door to the school was locked for whatever reason, and I just pulled on it for a while and just ripped it right open. It's not that I was that strong. It was just the wood just gave out. It was old. But yeah, so when I was 6 or 7, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a Muay Thai fighter.
Where does that?
I'm not 6 or 7, 5th or 6th grade.
6th grade?
What does that make you, like 11, 12?
Yeah, ish.
Yeah,
right around there.
Yeah.
So from 11, 12 to the lost years, is Muay Thai anywhere?
No.
It's just like...
No, unfortunately. And I wish it would have. No, I shouldn't even say that. It just wasn't available anywhere that we were.
Yeah.
Like I grew up in small towns and small cities where there wasn't anything like that. So like had it been there, I likely would have done it.
Yeah.
And maybe it would have saved me from a lot of, from the lost years. But I honestly can say, like, even the lost years, I look back on them fondly now. Like there's a lot to learn from that.
Yeah.
Like so much to learn.
It's hard learning.
Yeah, hard learning. Like, you know, you get a lot of street smarts from nearly living on the streets. Yeah.
When did Muay Thai show up again? Like what was the
catalyst?
Yeah, what was that like, you know, having that outer body experience and starting to like read? What was the kind of that transition there to?
You know, now that I think of it, the out of body experience happened shortly after I had started Muay Thai already. So I was already a little bit closer to the what I would call the right path in that regard. I had actually, so what finally reminded me that I wanted to do Muay Thai was, you know, I got into a fight. Like I used to get into a number of fights in my late teens.
Yep.
It's not like I didn't think I wanted it, but somehow it always find me. So I probably did want it. I just couldn't admit it at the time.
Yep.
But anyway, the one day, Me and 3 or 4 friends were out at a club. The last thing one of my friends could remember was me sitting on a curb talking to a girl. The last thing I could remember is me saying, whoa, guys, we can work this out. And then, like, at first there was 2. I remember that. There was 2. I was like, okay, it's only 2. I might be able to do this. Then all of a sudden there was a bunch. I was like, whoa, we could probably talk about this, guys. It turns out we couldn't. So I ended up waking up a couple hours later on the sidewalk, a little bit of a rough condition. Checked my pockets, phone's still there, wallet's still there, like wallet's full of money. It's like, okay, I probably got into a fight and it wasn't about getting robbed or anything. Couldn't even quite remember what happened. But then I was like, I don't even know where I am. So I first I waved down a cab. This white Crown Vic pulls up, looks like a cab. I hop in the front seat. I always hop in the front seat of cabs for some reason. Call my girlfriend, and she's like, I'm like, where am I? How do I get to your place? I don't really know where I am. And then the cab driver, this huge dude, starts rubbing my leg. I was like, at first I thought maybe he's consoling me because I'm literally covered in blood. It's like, maybe he's consoling me. I'll just bat his hand away. And then I keep talking, and then he does it again, and he starts kind of squeezing my thigh. I'm like, what? He's like, oh, I just want to suck your dick, man. I was like, what? No, why? What makes you think that was on the menu? Like, and I was like, oh, shit, he thinks I'm a prostitute. He's like, he thought I was working the streets. And I was like, no, man, that's not me at all. And then I was like, no, that's not happening. And he was nice about it. He was great about it. He's like, oh, okay, well, I'll drop you off here. I was like, well, close to my place. You could still give me a ride. Like, no, nothing's going to happen. But he's like, no, you can get out here. I was like, okay, fair enough. And then I got out of the cab and I just started laughing. I was like, oh, that is just the weirdest thing that has ever happened. I started laughing. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, rib hurt. I couldn't breathe properly. I was like, okay, I have a bruised rib. And then next 2 weeks I had a concussion. And I was like, you know what? When I was young, I wanted to be a Muay Thai fighter. So I ended up looking up clubs in the city. Actually, I was looking for boxing clubs at first for some reason. And then this was when Yellow Pages was still a thing.
Yeah. What city were you in right at this time?
Sorry?
What city were you in?
This was Calgary.
Oh, okay. You were here.
Yeah, this all happened in Calgary.
You were here.
Yeah. All that happened in Calgary. So anyway, I was looking through Yellow Pages for a boxing club. Closest thing I could find was a Muay Thai club. And I had somehow forgotten about Muay Thai. I don't know why, but it's like, okay, I'll go check it out. Went to the front desk, talked to Leisha Smandich, actually, Trevor's sister. She was there. And for whatever reason, I still can't figure out why, like it popped into my head right away. I was like, do you guys do competitive fighting? Like right away, first day I was there, I hadn't even thought about competing at all. And she's like, yeah, we totally do. I was like, oh, cool. So me and a friend signed up for a trial class. I think she did like 5 classes. I loved it right away. And then I just ran with it.
What'd you love about it? What'd you know right away that you were like, oh, this is
you know what? Thing? Honestly, the first thing was Trevor. Trevor was just a solid guy. Still gets me a little emotional talking about it. Trevor was just a solid, really welcoming, confident, happy, caring kind of person. Like, like a lot of people even now, I'm sure, think that if they're going to a Muay Thai club, like, oh, these are going to be rough, badass people, and they're so intimidating. It's like, all of my experiences with every Muay Thai club or fighter that I have, luckily for myself at least, experienced, they've all just been super down to earth, good people, like wouldn't hurt a fly unless they had to. They will destroy the fly, but they're just the nicest people. And I was like, yeah, this is healthy. Like I could just feel it was healthy. Like you could feel walking in there. I was like, yeah, this is much better than what I've been doing. Yeah.
And was it a quick commitment? Like were you going there often? And
yeah, I was there probably 3 days a week at least for the first while. And you know what? Like I said, back then I got into a lot of fights. I got into one more like this was like 4 months after having started. A friend of mine was beaking off to the wrong people. I was the quiet one. I never, like I said, I was never looking for it. I was just being quiet. It's like keeping to myself. And like, oh, he's being quiet. He must be weak or something like that. So they're like, let's pick on him. I was like, man, I don't really want any of this, but like, I'm also not going to turn anybody down. So they finally ended up saying, you know, we're going to go outside. We're going to be waiting for you when you leave the pub. The pub owner comes up to me. He's like, this guy's a known street fighter in the neighborhood. He's way bigger than you. I'll sneak you out the back. I was like, no, I'm not gonna go out the back door. I'm gonna go out the front door and see if Muay Thai actually works. And sure enough, like I cleaned up really well. Fight apparently lasted 5 minutes, which seems really long to me. Like, I don't think it lasted that long. But I ended up walking back in. He didn't. And then I ended up getting turned away because I was covered in blood. But it was his blood at least this time. Yeah,
You were clean.
And you know what? That was the last street fight ever. Literally the last time. Because like, I think all this time that I had been getting into these street fights, I was probably looking for confidence that I could do something that I didn't have. I didn't have the confidence or the knowledge. And then I finally had it. And I was like, now I don't need it. But then like, you know, ring fights, more of those.
How did that, when you walk in the first day and like, do you guys do competitive? How long did that take from the minute you walk in those doors to your first competitive fight?
I think it was less than a year, but like it was like a light contact tournament that I did, which honestly, like, I don't think I did that well in. Like I think I lost. So I signed up for like a kickboxing and a Muay Thai rules. For the kickboxing rules, I was just too, you know, like I was always the person that would try to learn somebody. I want to learn them and then exploit their habits kind of thing. Like I've been like that since the start. But like you have so little time, you have 90 seconds in those light contact tournaments. Like it all happens incredibly fast. So like I lost because I was like just trying to defend everything and learn and then like hopefully find something clean. And there just wasn't room for that. But then in the Muay Thai rules, I ended up winning that because like there I could still control it a lot better because of clinching. I don't know if you know the difference between kickboxing and Muay Thai.
Very vaguely.
Like kickboxing is just striking, punching, kicking. And Muay Thai, you get to clinch also, which affords you the ability to control the pace of the fight a lot better. So if someone's in tight and just unloading punches on you, you can go in tighter to slow things down, like tie them up, throw knees from the inside. But if like, let's say, like I always explain to everybody, if things aren't going your way in the clinch, just tie it up completely. The ref will break it up. You get to start off on the outside again. So in Muay Thai, that one I won because I could control it a lot better.
Was it, were you a natural at this? Was it hard work? Was it coaching? Like what was your...
No, I was not a natural at all. Like at that point in particular, because I had thrown away a good 7 years of my life not being healthy.
Right.
My athleticism had, you know, eroded quite a bit. I was like incredibly athletic till I was like, I'd say 14, 15. About there. Like very athletic. But you know, a good 5, 6 years of just drinking, drugs, partying, all that stuff, that'll erode that pretty quick. But I wanted it. And I'm a hard worker. You know, like so I put in a lot of work. That's one thing that you can definitely take, and I attribute to my Mennonite upbringing. Hard workers. That's one thing they're known for, and that definitely resides or prevails in myself and all my siblings. So yeah, hard work. Just you know, listening. Like listen to your coach, basically as best as you can. Anyway, like there's times when it's hard to listen. Like you're in a fight. Hundreds of people are listening, screaming, whatever they're screaming. And like, you know, you're overwhelmed already. To hear them is a little bit harder, but like during training, I'd always do everything I was asked. You would never have to ask me twice. I wouldn't ask why. At least not at first. I wouldn't ask why. Later on, I needed to understand more. So I would start to ask a lot more questions, but I would just do, you know, he would say jump and I would say how high. Like there's no question. Go running. How long? You know, like where?
Whose point?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Was there a sense of community in this
Yeah.
club?
Yeah.
Like, and that does that part of the does that enter into the picture of just kind of like reshaping you and kind of putting you on a different path?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's probably the hugest thing about it, honestly, and that's why. That's one of the biggest reasons I do what I do now, because like as much as I like having competitive athletes at the club, and I feel it's important to help direct the energy to a degree. Yeah, the community's the most important part for sure. If the community at our club was not healthy, I wouldn't want a part of it.
Mm.
And like again, Trevor was incredibly good at establishing a healthy community, and that was a very healthy community. And that's, again, likely why I stayed with it. If it hadn't have been Trevor's club, I don't know if I would have actually stuck with it, to be honest.
It's interesting that, like, you know, that one decision, whatever that yellow page is, like flipping to that one.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing how like one decision like that can put you on a path.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So where does it start going? So you're working, training.
Yeah.
Trying to get your...
Yeah, at this point I was a tradesman. So I was working long, hard hours.
What were you doing?
I would go back and forth between carpentry, painting, and siding.
Okay.
Like, you know, like as simple as trades. Actually, sometimes it was renovating, like complete projects.
Yep.
But yeah, I spent a really long time in the painting. It wasn't like just painting walls or whatever. It was like the, you know, fine carpentry, making things look like glass, basically, is what we would do. Yeah. And refining processes. That's what I liked to do. Like I get bored pretty quick with things. So painting by itself, incredibly boring. Yeah. So like once I understood the process of painting and what the goal is at the end, I would try to find better processes of doing everything. And then once that was done, I was like, I'm just bored. Like, you got to give me something else to do. Which is why, again, Muay Thai was very helpful. Yep. But I would spend like minimum 10-hour days working hard, physical work. Then go to the club, hour to 2 hours a day. Like, this is earlier on. Yep. Early on, it was like 10 hours a day trades, hour and a half, roughly 2 hours of training every day, and then a little bit on my own at home sometimes if I was bored still. Yep. Yeah.
Did you know you were like changing your trajectory?
It was very conscious about it. Yeah. Yeah, which is important. Like in particular, knowing what I know now is a very conscious change. Like I had to put a lot of work into not falling into old traps. I had to leave a lot of people behind that like I wanted to help, but I couldn't. Like for a period of time, I tried to help my friends out of their holes. Yeah. And finally, it was just like, you just keep pulling me down. I got to let go completely. This isn't working. Yeah. That was probably one of the tougher parts of it. Yep. But yeah, I had to change everything, like change your surroundings completely.
And changing them inside of a new community is kind of a good spot to try it.
Yeah, it was the right place to do it.
When what does the progression look like? You know, in your kind of early days there, and then you know you're starting to do competitions. What is this? What does it all look like? And where do you get to a point where you're like, yeah, I got something here. I can chase this for a while.
Oh man,
because it's a hard. It's a hard life, like doing trades and then training. Like, it's a huge commitment. Yeah. So, you know, when does it kind of change for you?
You know what? Like, oh man, it actually took a long time for me to realize I was actually being an athlete. You know, like I must have had probably 14 fights before I realized I was an athlete. You know, it didn't even really sink in.
What do you think you were thinking about? You're just like,
I have no idea. I was just doing. I was just going with it. Like, you know, like one thing would turn into another. Like that. Like I said, I did that light tournament. I think I did that within 6 months or something, like that light contact. I think I had my first fight within maybe a year and a half. After that, I planned a trip to Thailand. I think I had 4 fights before I went to Thailand.
Was Thailand always on your radar? Like
No.
once you're like in, so where does it come up? How does Thailand enter into the conversation?
Well, like I had, it's all actually kind of blurs together a little bit, but like I must have had a couple fights, and then I was thinking about traveling. I hadn't put the two together yet. I was just thinking about traveling. I was like, where should I travel? It's like, well, I don't want to just go to a beach. That's not for me. Like, that's good for a couple of days, but I'll be bored pretty quick. And I wanted to go for a while, with the potential of not even coming back. Actually, that's what my first trip was. So I was like, well, I'm doing Muay Thai. I might as well go to Thailand and learn there. And then, I started planning or getting the idea of going to Thailand. Must have had 2 or 3 more fights before I finally went, because I had 4 fights by the time I went. That part I remember. And if I remember right, at that point, I had also decided, you know what? I don't want to be a tradesman for the rest of my life. Like, I can already see what my life is going to look like, and I don't like it.
Yep.
So I had my own small trades company at that point. I packed everything up, sold everything I had. And I was like, I'm going to Thailand for 4 months at least. I don't know if I'm coming back. I'm not 100% sure anyway. But I had to have a return flight. Otherwise, they didn't let you go. I think that's how the visa worked back then. So anyway, I was like, I love Muay Thai. I want to go on a trip. So I'll go to Thailand and learn Muay Thai. Yeah.
Did you know anybody that had done that? Was it like early days where it's kind of obscure to go down that path?
There was very few. Like my coach and their team would go for IFMAs every now and then. International Federal something martial arts. Yeah. It's like the Olympics for Muay Thai, basically. Okay. And they would go there, but I'd never talked to anybody about it. So I was just like, no, I'm going. The only thing I had booked actually was, that's right. Sylvie, she had gone to Thailand. She had gone to Northeast, Ubon, Ratchathani, where all the best fighters come from. And then she told me about that, and I was like, okay, that's where I'm going to go. Then when I went, I had my first hotel booked for the first night, and that was it. And after that, I was like, I'm just going to see what happens. And that's exactly what I did. Really quickly ended up meeting other guys that were in Thailand for Muay Thai. One from Sweden, one from Australia, Jamie and Johan. Yeah, Johan.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then anyway, we went to like islands for like two weeks to just party and vacation training. Yep. And then after that, I was like, I can't party anymore. This is just destructive again. And then I went to Ubon, spent the next 3.5 months there. It was great. There's nothing to do there except Muay Thai. Yeah.
How big is that town? Like, what does it actually look like?
The city is a big city. Okay. Yeah, big city. Like, no tourists there. The only tourists that were there, that were literally there for Muay Thai. There's a guy, Ole Laursen. He had established a club with his Thai wife. Ole's from Denmark. He was a K1 fighter back then. Okay. It was the same club that Sylvie had gone to. Sylvie was a teammate. Yeah, so I just went there, stayed in the camp. Like, you get your room, food, everything's there. You rent a scooter to go hang out in the city if you want to. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you, is it open door policy when you show up there? Like, do they let anybody kind of into their camps and train?
Yeah. If you have the money and you want to go do it, go for it. But like, it's not for everybody. Because there's literally nothing to do but train there. So a lot of people would actually come and turn around just as quick because it's not what they had in mind. But like, if you were there for Muay Thai, you would definitely appreciate it and you would stay.
So how long did you stay?
I ended up staying for 4 months. Okay. Yeah, full 4 months. And then after that, I was like, man, it is hot. March, it gets hot. Like hot. It's like 36 degrees. I was like, man, I could really go snowboarding right now. That would be awesome. But like, I'm coming back for sure. So then I, do it again next year. So I would come back, Canada, train, work, go back to Thailand, come back, train, work, Thailand kind of thing.
For a few years, that was the cycle.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Did you
great.
fight while you were in Thailand?
I did, yeah.
Is that a different experience versus?
Yeah, totally different. Yeah. My first fight, man, it was crazy. Like they would have backcountry fights. So these are
I'm picturing like true backcountry, like in the sticks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like unsanctioned fights that they're really not supposed to have because there's people you're supposed to pay.
Yep.
So they would literally set up like, poles, tarp so that people couldn't watch for free. There's a guard at the tarp door entrance with a machine gun or a couple of them. And you get to go in. There's no paramedics. There's nothing like that. You're at least like an hour away from anything. That part's a bit intimidating.
Mm-hmm. Seems like an understatement.
Yeah. And then when they'd match you up, they'd be like, you and maybe 3 other guys from your club or 4 or 5, however many showed up.
Yep.
And then a bunch of their Thai people. And they're like, you and you, you and you. This is how the fights were matched. It's like, you got a 6-pack, you got a 6-pack. You guys.
Go dance.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a great experience though.
Is that intimidating? Like,
man, like, yeah. I would be lying if I said it wasn't.
Seems like a very like heavy place to be.
Yeah.
Fighting.
Yeah, it was great though. Like I loved it. I loved every second of it. Like I think I always tended to do better when I didn't have that much time to worry about things. So the fact that I didn't even know who I was fighting, that was a good thing. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to do my best. I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. Yeah. Even like, yeah, nothing was like it was in Canada. Canada, everything's very organized.
Yep.
You're fighting this person. You have 6-8 weeks to train for them.
Yep.
You weigh in the day before. You show up 2 hours ahead of time, get your hands wrapped, shadow box, hit the pads, go fight. But in Thailand, it was like, man, your coach was drunk. He wrapped both hands different. You're like, why is this one different than that one? He's like, yeah, every time different. It's like, I don't think so, but okay. Kind of just, again, like being thrown in the water, which I like. Yeah.
How long was that? How many years did you go do that kind of tour? Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
I think I only did that for 3 years.
Okay.
So like it was about 12 months.
Yep.
But like I went back for other things. Like we went back for IFMAs and I think I took someone there for a month. I went another month all on my own, which I left on that trip early for whatever reason. But yeah, I spent about a total of 2 years in Thailand.
And once that's over, what kind of path are you on?
Oh, well, I stopped going because, I met someone and like going to Thailand for 4 years every month isn't conducive to a long-term relationship. I think I must have been, I guess 24, 25 makes about sense. Yep. So then I stopped going. Then I just kept competing in Canada with Trevor.
Yep. What does that look like? Like, did you compete a lot and get to a certain level?
Oh man, like there was the one summer I must have fought like, I think it was like 10 times in 2 months.
Oh, wow.
But it was because they were tournaments like, yeah. So you sometimes like in a tournament, these tournaments like IKFs and TPAs, if you win, you go on to the next round. So you get like a good full fight.
Yep.
You win, you fight again the next day or the later on in that day. Depends. Sometimes it was different.
Yep.
But yeah, it was good. Tried to fight at least, 3 times a year. At least. You don't want too much of a break because, it's good to stay fresh. Yeah.
Are you chasing something when you're like fighting in Canada? Are you trying to achieve something, or is it just like part of your life?
Yeah, it was a good portion. It was just part of the life. And it was actually the chasing something that was a bit disruptive, I think. Like as soon as I started chasing, like I got to win this tournament. I got to get this belt. I got to be better than this person. That's where I screwed myself over. The whole time there was a period where it was just simply about improving. Like, I just want to get better. How can I personally get better? Like me personally. As soon as I made it about the other person, that's when I stopped getting better. Comparing yourself to others isn't that helpful, because that's what I ended up doing anyway. Maybe not everybody else, but I was like, I got to beat this person. How do I beat this person specifically? And that would really form how the training camp would go. Instead of like, how can I just get better in general, like altogether, which is what I should have been thinking.
Is that, I'm guessing, your club right now, when people are asking for, if you have the opportunity to talk or shed some wisdom on people, that's part of the conversation?
Oh yeah, like I'll always give anybody anything, but like if people don't want to listen, I'm not going to talk either. So I wait for people to ask questions. Otherwise, like, well, what am I going to waste my words for? Everybody's on a different journey anyway. It's completely different for every single person.
Yep.
Some people just want to get in there and do one light contact. Some people just want to get in there and hit the bag. Some people want to get to the point where they can spar. Some people want to be world champion. Some people think they want to be world champion. You know, everybody's different. They all have different questions. And the nice thing about having been in it for so long, like I can reflect and like, or, you know, there's periods where I was like, I don't want to grow anymore. I'm happy where I am. Like, if I get better, I'm going to have to fight people that are much better. So like, maybe I don't want to grow anymore, you know? Go through periods like that too.
How does, when do you, maybe you aren't, when do you think about not fighting? Like when's the switch between like living that life to, you know, stopping, you know, not fighting? Like, what does it look like?
For me, it wasn't a choice, unfortunately. Like, I ended up having to quit. It was my physio, my doctor told me I had to. I sustained a number of injuries that I didn't deal with properly. And they ended up causing more injuries on top of injuries kind of thing. It compounded to the point where, like, my one doctor is like, you have moderate arthritis. Now, in case that doesn't sound serious to you, this is what seniors get diagnosed that have worked hard their whole life. So consider that. And my physio, same thing. She's like, you're just getting worse and worse and worse all the time. It's like, shit. And I was losing to people I shouldn't be losing to. Like, technically, I'm like, if my body was good, I would know exactly what I would do to you. It wouldn't be hard. Yeah. But I was losing to people because I couldn't train how I should. It was just impossible. Yeah. Too many injuries.
When they tell you that, did you listen or did you?
Yeah. After a while. Yeah. Like I took some time and I really looked at my health. I was like, shit, they're right. I'm actually in pretty horrible condition. Like I had vertigo for the last 8 months. Like I was still competing. Like, I don't know, it was more than that. It was probably a good 2 years. I had vertigo, like all the time. The only time I felt good was while I was training. Get warmed up. I was like, okay, now I feel good. And I could do pretty good. But as soon as it cooled down, vertigo come back. And that's not fun.
I've had vertigo for 24 years.
No way.
Yeah.
You currently have it.
Like I deal with it. I haven't had a spell in like a real one in a while. Years, like decade.
Oh, so you know then.
Yeah. I know exactly. I know what you're feeling, man.
That's not fun. What's yours from?
Concussions.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Some hockey, motorcycle crash.
Oh, okay.
You know, just, yeah.
Mine was from spinal injuries. I've had whiplash 7 times now. Twice from car accidents. No, not 7. 5. Twice from car accidents, 3 times from fights. Yeah. So I was able to correct mine. Yep. Like straighten my spine out. So I don't have that problem anymore.
When did you, when the doctors are telling you like, hey, you should be mindful of what you're doing. You start losing some fights that you shouldn't lose. That end, whatever that transition looks like when you're like, okay, I got to stop doing this. Did you know what the next move is going to be?
No, man, I didn't. Like, that was the hard part. Like, they gave me a bunch of like, here's the problem, but like, what's the solution? Yeah. Nobody gave me a solution to anything. Actually, no, that's not true. It was my physio. She finally gave up. I put her kid through college and spent a couple of years with her. And then finally she's like, we aren't getting anywhere. You tried yoga. I was like, no, I don't do yoga. I'm a fighter and I'm a guy. So like, because that back then, like I was right where everybody else was with yoga. Yep. It's a feminine thing for some reason. And then finally I was like, okay, fine, whatever. I'll try anything because this is horrible. I started with some one-on-one sessions with someone because I was like, I'm probably going to need a little bit more specific help. And after a week, I finally noticed the difference. I was like, holy shit, this is actually going to work. Like I hadn't noticed a positive change in years. 1 week and I noticed change and I was like, okay, I will redirect all my Muay Thai energy into this and I will fix myself with the idea that I want to compete again. I didn't know how long the road would be. It was a long road because I was pretty messed up.
What year did that start?
Yoga started in when I was 12 years ago, I guess.
Okay.
29. And then, I would do yoga. I was like, okay, I feel pretty good. Let me go try and train. I would train. It would set me back months. It was like, oh shit, like I just lost months of work. So I was like, okay, I'll go longer without training. You go even longer, train, and then set me back again. I was like, fuck, this just isn't working. And then finally I was like, okay, I'm going to quit doing Muay Thai, but I'm going to start boxing because I can box because I don't have to do like, it was a lot of the kicking and throwing knees that was messing up my spine and my ankle. Is it my ankle that messed up my spine? I don't know if you know how that works together. I feel like since you're an athlete, you probably do. You wreck your ankle, you're going to wreck your knee. Yeah. If you don't fix the ankle. Yeah. And it just works its way up, like right up to the top of your head, like which is where the vertigo, that's where it ended basically. But anyway, I was able to, actually I had switched my stance years ago in Muay Thai. I had switched my stance because I wrecked my ankle. So I wrecked my rear ankle and that one does all the pushing. So I was like, well, I want to keep fighting. So I'm just going to switch my stance, put the bad ankle in front, which ended up working really well actually for a while. Like I won a good amount of fights, some of my favorite fights that way. Turns out I should have been southpaw the whole time.
That's what I was going to say. It's like switching to southpaw.
Yeah. I did really well, like right away. Like in southpaw, I was like, fuck, all this time. Anyway, but then that caught up with me too. Even being southpaw wasn't working anymore because the ankle was like literally I was taped up every day, all day, just to avoid pain in the ankle.
Was it just like you just couldn't let it go?
No, I couldn't let it go. Well, like you have to remember where I came from. Yeah. So if I let that go, now what? Yeah. Like the fear, it wasn't up front. Like I didn't know that was my fear, but the fear of reverting back to where I came from was very strong. Which is something I realized later through yoga. But so I didn't want to let it go. So I was like, okay, yoga is working. I think that's the thing that's going to help me. And then I continued to train myself boxing. I actually taught myself boxing. So I spent like probably 2 years. I would do yoga to warm up. And then I would teach myself boxing. Like I'd videotape myself doing something, tear myself apart, do it again, tear myself apart, do it again. And I would spend like 2-3 hours a day like this every day. And then I was like, okay, I feel pretty good when I do just boxing, as long as I don't go running. So I'm going to go try a boxing club and see how what I've been working on has actually, has it been effective? Has my own training been effective? So I actually joined Beaumont Boxing. Again, really great place, like solid people, like Doug Harder. I really liked him. He was a fellow Mennonite, actually, oddly enough. So similar upbringing, because that tends to carry with the crowd. Yep. So we understood each other very well. But the first day I was like, yeah, I'd like to try some sparring. I'm just curious, see how I do. So I sparred these guys and I was like, oh, damn, I'm pretty good. Felt pretty good. And they're like, yeah, you're doing really good. I was like, okay, well, you guys have any like competitive people? And they're like, yeah, these guys are fighting like next week. I was like, no way. It's like, oh, that's awesome. And then that's where I actually realized, like, if you just stop measuring yourself against other people, like you'll go a lot further. Like just see how you can do better. See how you can do the absolute best you can do. And like, I trained myself to the point where I was like, I have no more questions. Like, how do I make this better? I didn't have any of that left. I was like, so I need someone to give me more questions. So I went to the boxing club for more questions. And it was like, and they still gave me tons. Don't get me wrong. Like, there was a lot to learn still, but like, yeah, very, very useful learning tool, like to rely on yourself first.
It's an interesting, like that, but that transfers into everything, right? It's almost like, is it like operating with blinders up? Like you're focusing on things you can control and yourself. Like it can be used everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And to this day, I still, when I'm like in a tough spot and I'm like, I'm not sure what to do, I have a question. You know what I mean? Like I have a question to which I don't have the answer yet. I will ask anybody that I know that I think might have the answer. And then, but this is after asking myself. I'll ask myself first, what is the answer to this question? I was like, I think it's this. This seems right. Then I'll ask anybody that I know that might have the answer. And most of the time they all come with the same answers. Like this is business related stuff in particular.
Yeah.
They'll tell me the exact same thing I thought. I was like, okay, what's this? Affirmation helps. So like, I'll just do it. Yeah.
So where does the boxing thing go?
You know what? I almost actually competed, but sure enough, as soon as I had to start competing, like training hard, my ankle gave out on me again. I got 2 weeks in, ankle gave out again. I was like, no, I'm not putting myself through that again. So like to this day, you know, that the ankle has always been the Achilles.
Well said.
Yeah.
So what does that transition then look like? I'm on you on the transitions because I feel like there's just like these moments in time where things start changing. So once you put that to bed, you're into yoga. Like what starts?
You know what? Like I couldn't let Muay Thai go. I still loved it. I love again, it comes down to the community. Like even within like each club has their own little community, but within the community in the city, you know, I just love everybody in the community. Like it's just such a great group of people, you know? So it's like, oh, I still want to stay in the community. And I started teaching. I had been teaching quite a bit by then already. And then, I was managing a club. I was managing the personal training department of a big box gym.
Okay.
And I would actually spend a lot of time with injured people because I was fixing myself. So like anytime anybody was injured, they would give me that person or they would come to me and I'd be like, okay, well, I've had this. Like I've literally had every injury you can think of. Like, yeah, do this. Like this will help or we can modify your training for this. And then like I'd still get a lot of people that would want Muay Thai or boxing. And then at the same time, I was learning yoga. I wouldn't teach yoga. I was learning yoga. Yoga was just for me. Yeah, yoga was just for me. I kept teaching boxing, Muay Thai, and strength and conditioning. And then I would like go to India to learn yoga also whenever I could. I only got to spend 2 months there, but like the amount that I learned in those 2 months, I couldn't impose that much knowledge on my body at that time, if that makes sense. Like my body couldn't accept those changes that fast. So like I took everything I learned from it and I continue actually to this day to impose my will over my body, if that makes sense, to help correct the issues. And like I'm still dealing with some. I'm not free yet. I don't know that I'll ever get to be that, but well, never say never. But I ended up opening my own club. Man, that must have been like 11 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, I don't even remember. It was 11 years ago. Yeah,
wow.
It's a long time ago. And then I did that for 2 years. At this point, I had already been teaching for 6 or 7 years or something like that. Timelines are a little skewed, so I might be off. I did that for 2 years. 2008 happened. You remember 2008? Oil and gas plummeted. 70% of my students were oil and gas. The ones that didn't lose their jobs were afraid of losing their jobs. So, you know, fear took a hold of everybody, and like I must have lost a good 70, 80% of my members within a month.
Wow.
My lease was coming up. I was about to turn, I want to say 35.
Yep.
And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take a year off. I'm actually kind of frustrated and annoyed with teaching and coaching. Maybe I don't even want to do this. Maybe this is something I just felt like I needed to do so that I wouldn't have to give up on it. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to wash my hands of it, take a year off and just see how I end up with that year. Plus I want to learn how to do nothing. I don't know if you've ever tried that.
No, man.
Fuck, that is hard. Try to do nothing for a period of time.
Did it work?
No.
No.
It was the busiest year ever. So I decided, okay, you don't have to do nothing. You're going to have to do something. You got to occupy your mind with something.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I wasn't that strong of simply an observer yet, which is still a goal of mine. But like, so to do nothing wasn't necessarily an option, but to do nothing to further my career in any way was an option. So I was like, okay, well, I got to do something to preoccupy myself with. I've always wanted to grow my own food, like learn how. I was pescatarian at the time, so my diet was basically fruit and fish. It's like, well, maybe I'll figure out a way to raise fruit and fish in the city. So I did research. I came across something called aquaponics. I don't know if you know what aquaponics is. Yeah, so you have aquaculture plus hydroponics. You raise plant in nutrient-rich water, and you raise fish. Fish create waste. That waste becomes fertilizer for the plants in the water or soilless grow beds. It's an ecosystem. It's like, okay, seems cool. And there wasn't many people doing this at that time. So I was like, okay, I'll try it. I'll build a system and see if it actually works. So I built a small prototype in my backyard, and sure enough, it worked. I was like, oh, that's cool. I wonder if I could do this in a dark room in the winter because, that's Canada. So I researched grow light technology and what plants need to grow, and fruit in particular in the winter. So I built a system in my basement, and sure enough, that ended up working. And then somebody saw what I was doing, and they're like, hey, would you be interested in putting a proposal in for this company for our cafeteria and our showroom? This is Dirt Environmental. I don't know if you know of them. So anyway, I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. So like to potentially be in their showroom would have been really cool. In their cafeteria was pretty cool. But so I put in my proposals. Not my best work. I wasn't business savvy at that point, I wouldn't say. But I put a proposal in anyway, and then they underwent a hostile takeover like very shortly after, and they're like, we're suspending all new projects. So sorry. But I was like, in the meantime, I was like, yeah, it could be a pretty cool business anyway. And I believed in it. I thought it was pretty cool, like healthy, organic, grown things. Like it seems like a good way to solve a lot of problems in the world currently. Like I still don't quite understand why we're transporting. No, I get why we're transporting mangoes from Panama, for example, because they're delicious. But like if we can figure out a way to not have to do that, that'd be great. So I started finding niches that I could fill with that. I finally ended up landing a project of building. So I had somebody ask me if I could build systems in their home. He had a large home. And I looked around. I was like, man, I don't know if I'd put it anywhere in your home, really. He's like, okay, well, you want to build me a greenhouse? I was like, sure. So I researched how to build 4-season greenhouses. I built him a 4-season greenhouse, filled it with aquaponic growing systems. And yeah, that's been running ever since. That's actually a R&D project right now.
Cool.
Yeah. So we're working on potentially growing trees, like fruiting trees, like avocado, mango, citrus. Amazing. Yeah. In aquaponic systems. So there's a long-term business plan with that one also.
Cool.
But I have to first proof of concept that. And in the meantime, learned a lot about business from having to do that sort of thing. And stocks, to be honest. Like that's one of the, I always thought like business would be cool, but I don't know if you really learn that much about business in business school. You probably do, but I might not. So like I will learn about businesses if I invest in businesses. So I started investing in businesses like through the stock market. And investing in businesses, not buying stocks. There's a difference. And then like that would force me to learn like what's a good business. Like, and I would keep up to date. Like, why is their stock dropping? Why is it going up? Like, was this a delay from what happened 2 months ago? Or is this what's going to happen in 6 months? What's going to happen in 3 years, et cetera? And this is how I got my business degree.
Self-taught.
Yeah. Anyway, that whole time I was still teaching. Like after a year of not pursuing anything profitable, I sold a project and I started teaching again because I missed it so much. I actually started teaching both yoga and Muay Thai, actually. Yeah.
Out of the different places? Like 2 different communities? Like just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I taught yoga for Breathe. No, I can't remember. You know, I taught yoga for a number of places. I was at like 6 places for a while.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, so I had my own thing at some places. I would rent studio space and teach like my own students that had just come to me over time. And then I would teach at WTM Muay Thai. Albert Hahn, great guy again, really good community. I was teaching for Breathe Yoga. 2 friends of mine owned that. I was teaching at a different yoga studio. Can't remember.
You're all over.
I was all over, yeah. I love teaching. I like to stay busy. Not much for sitting around. Yeah.
And did all these experiences kind of lead you to spinning up your own places?
Yeah, actually, you know, I was pretty content with what I was doing. But then I had a friend of mine ask me if I would teach at his place because he had started a place just before COVID, a small, like 1,200-1,400 square foot Muay Thai club in Royal Oak with a different partner. That didn't go well. And then they had started just before COVID, like a week before, which is not obviously not good timing. So they basically ended up having to shut down. And then in April 21, they had a falling out. And he wasn't really prepared to run the place on his own. We ran into each other at a Muay Thai World Cup event, actually one of Kieran's events at Tsutsina Nation. Yeah. And we hadn't talked in, it must have been like 10, 11 years. Anyway, he mentioned the club. I can't remember how it ended up, but he asked me if I would come join him, run the business. At first I was like, no, you know what, I'll come teach there and see what it's like. Like I have a lot going on in my life anyway. Like I don't really know if I'm prepared to commit to anything, but I'll teach and see. Then after a couple months, I was like, yeah, you know what, I could probably help with this one, like turn it profitable, etc.
Yep.
And then sure enough, within six months, it was profitable. Within another 10 months, we're like, okay, it's time to expand. Like actually, just to backtrack a bit, like when I very first went in the studio, I was like, this isn't a Muay Thai club. This is a yoga studio. Like the way it's designed, the way it's made, everything, like this doesn't make sense. And the space across the hall is like 5,000 square foot, big open space. Like, and it was supposed to be an Anytime Fitness, but the guy that had bought the unit to turn it into that had decided against it after COVID. It was like, that's a Muay Thai club. This is a yoga studio. But like, let's first fill this up and see if that's still available by then. Yeah. And then sure enough, within 18 or 8 months, we were like, okay, we're already at capacity for the most popular classes. Yep. So like, let's start having a conversation with that guy about taking over his space. Took 3 months or so to hammer out a deal. And then we had that. I spent the next 3 months doing the tenant improvements myself, because again, in construction. So at first I was just going to manage it, just GM the whole thing. Yep. But cost restrictive, I ended up doing a good proportion of the work myself while teaching at the other place, while managing the other place, while still doing the U-Farm thing. And then we opened that last March.
Okay. That's pretty fresh.
Yeah. And we managed to stay profitable through the whole thing.
Did you, between like hard work, like work ethic, self-taught, there just seems to be, you're pulling from a bunch of different spots to make this thing go forward. Yeah. Just been like a lifetime of experiences to kind of get you to that spot?
Yeah, 100%. Like everything that that's what I meant. Like I think earlier on I said everything is likely relevant from having 9 siblings, you know. I'm always around people. I know when to shut up, for example. Like this person's having a bad day. This person's having a bad day. I need somebody to talk to. This person just wants to do whatever the fuck they want to do. Like just let them run. Yeah. You know, like everybody's different. Everybody's coming from different, different place day to day. So like, as far as like being the coach that's there most of the time, You know, I'm used to being around people all the time.
Yeah.
I'm used to sitting back and listening. Like, you need me to listen, I'll listen. Like, you need me to talk, I'll talk. You need to hear something, I have words for you if you want. And then, yeah, managing the business, like, you know, street smarts came in there, like getting good rates on the place, not getting hoodwinked.
Yeah.
You know, making sure contracts were set up properly
Mm-hmm.
and this is where a lot of my business degree came in, like understanding what could happen, what might happen, and being prepared for eventualities. And, you know, like I have a good amount of experienced people to pull from, you know, so I talk anytime there's a situation that seems like this could be long-term consequences or benefits.
Yep.
I talk to people that I know in the field first. Like again, I'll first ask myself, this seems right. I'll talk to the other people that I know, does this seem right? And they're all like, yeah, of course. You know, and then I get my support. And I've had nothing but support through this whole thing. Everything just always lines up perfectly. Like, and I had the vision of the yoga studio next to a Muay Thai club after I fixed myself with yoga. I was like, these two belong together. Like, if I had yoga in my back pocket the entire time I was fighting, my career would have gone way better than it did. Like, significantly better. Not just the physical, like the mental headspace that I was able to find or afford afterwards, significantly different. I can manage at least 10 times as much stress as I could back then. Like, it's just about how you see it. How do you perceive it? You know, and that's changed drastically, which makes me wish like this ankle wouldn't keep giving out on me. Like, I would love to be able to compete again. Like, even now, when was I watching fights last? I took 2 guys to BC 2 weeks ago to fight, and fuck, I still like, oh, I'd love to get in there. Yeah,
It's just who you are.
Yeah, with the new head. That's
a combination.
Yeah, exactly. And that would change everything. That changes everything.
Yep.
Headspace changes everything.
This has been a cool one.
Yeah.
It's like I said at the start, it's just cool to hear stories. It's cool to hear this story specifically. So I end the show with one question. When I say Calgary, where's your head go?
Oh, home for sure. You know, like it was literally only about 8 years ago that I decided Calgary's actually home. I've been living here 21 years, but only 8 years ago I was like, no, Calgary's home for sure.
What was
I don't know, man. Like, I traveled a lot. Like, once I finally could travel, I traveled a lot, and I really deeply considered living in all these places, all these other places that I got to travel. And I was like, no, something's not right. Like, Calgary has my heart for sure. Like, there is no other place like it. As much as I dislike winter sometimes and the tease of the Chinooks, I still love it. Like, nah, you can't beat Calgary. Not for me anyway.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, really cool meeting you and really cool hearing your story. So I do appreciate your time.
Thanks, Jeff.